How do you sort out the so-called jargon from real-world practices that work? Do the members of your organization find some business or technology advice utterly confusing? Welcome to Real Talk with Sam Holcman. In this program, we set the record straight, and in terms that business people and technology people can understand. Now, here is your host, Sam Holcman.
Welcome to this edition of Real Talk. I'm Sam Holcman, and this particular broadcast is part 3 of my short podcast, Real Talk with Sam Holcman, on the concept of strategy. And this particular episode has a title as follows: Strategy and Fool's Gold. Fool's Gold. If you haven't heard that term before, it really dates back quite some time, and it stands for a flashy investment of some kind that ultimately turns out to be worthless, and it's called fool's gold. And the origin, I believe, of this goes back quite a long time, actually, to the gold rush that occurred quite some time ago. And what fool's gold was in that particular context was a substance called iron pyrite. Iron pyrite. And it was mistaken for gold, and that's why it was called fool's gold. And there was a lot of people that were fooled by this. Now, what does that have to do with the concept of strategy? Well, unfortunately, a lot of people out there, a lot of organizations out there, a lot of, unfortunately, vendors are selling, in our opinion, strong opinion, fool's gold. And let me give you some examples of what this is. The first, and I think the one that really is something that you've got to think about, is will some vendor, whether it's a consulting firm, an advisory firm, a vendor firm, a firm that's selling you models, maps, whatever you want to call them, that has to do with architecture, strategy, those types of things, any of those vendors are selling you a best practice that will give you a competitive advantage. Now, why am I being so direct and possibly, I hope I don't sound like it, but I may, harsh in this area? Well, let's turn this around for a moment. Let's say that you, your organization, or you are the leader in the field. Would you want or allow anybody to sell to some competitor or some other organization what you work so hard to gain, which is your competitive advantage strategy? Well, of course not. Well, let me turn that around. Well, why would you think that you can go out and acquire this for that same reason? In other words, why would you think that some other organization would provide you with their core competencies, their capability understanding, their capabilities, or whatever it is, and say that's a best practice? Hard question to answer, and I think you'd know what the answer is. Well, of course they wouldn't. Well, let's go a little further. Another fool's gold is referred to by a number of different names. One would be a starter model. One would be an initial representation, a high-level model, map, whatever you want to call it. And that fool's gold has two components to it. One is, it could be that somebody is selling you razors and you have to buy, somebody is selling you razor blades and you have to buy the razor. I almost slipped up. In other words, somebody is selling you razor blades, and in order to use that razor blade, you have to buy the razor that costs you $500 a month or $300 a month or $4,000 or whatever it is. I almost slipped up there. So be careful of that. Buying razor blades, where in order to actually have full functionality for that, even though with my first example, I find it unimaginable that you can actually buy something that has extreme competitive strategic value out on the internet or from any vendor, whatever their pedigree is. So what is the role of a advisory firm? And of course, we suggest that we're a consulting and advisory firm also. It's to help you discover what your gold is so that you can make and generate more gold because you have a advantage of some kind that your marketplace is accepting. So we suggest, instead of looking for gold outside, which is called fool's gold, that you look for an approach to take the gold that you have and leverage that. That's really where you get the competitive advantage because it's very hard to duplicate or copy that. Until next time, please think about this particular broadcast especially.
Thank you for tuning in to Real Talk. Be sure to join your host, Sam Holcman, again for another edition of our program. We'll have more real topics of discussion then.